Welcome back to YellowCard Vanguard. We've had no new reveals this week, so I thought what I'd do is make a short series of videos about where we are now in the Link Joker Watch, Episode 2, Part 1. So yeah, I think we're actually going to get any reveals until sort of early to mid-December, because the release is not until mid to late January, so I'm expecting us to already get a trickle of information over the next month, and then it'll all come flowing out at once. So I think I'll take this time to just say where Link Joker is as a clan right now, and then sort of explain why that is and how to play it right now in Premium in regards to G, and sort of what each of the three main archetypes can expect going forward. It'll be less in-depth than the one I did last week, but also be much shorter, and I'll be more specific on certain details. Episode 1, Part 1 is Chaos. And Chaos is pretty depressing right now, actually. And believe me, it's depressing. Of course, it's not all doom and gloom. The main reason I would play Chaos right now in Premium is because you beat the boogeyman in the format. The boogeyman in the format is Geese. So when you can go Deluge, Close, and just override your Zeroths with junk from hand, it helps you not lose the Geese. The only problem is that, sure, you do the double Close Deluge play and then they lose all of their Zeroths and they just have a 30k Geese that does nothing. The problem then is you really struggle to hit 30k outside of your Vanguard swings. So you're pretty much praying to do the Deluge to shut down the Zeroths and then hope to stalk them out of the game, and that's kind of not good either. But right now, the build is very straightforward. Your goal is to reach one of your two win cons without dying. The two win cons being either Stark or a very, very, very big Deluge turn, which I'll explain and show off in a second in TTS. The way you get there is to either grind them out with slow advantage, or to just back-to-back glue ball them to just out pressure. Both of those are pretty valid, and which one you go into depends on what clan you're playing against. A clan that will full field like Aquaforce or Neonectar repeatedly, you're definitely going to go into glue balls repeatedly because you have enough lock power to full lock a board anyway, even if it does decent pieces from hand, but you can later get there. Whereas a much more tempo-y, grindy deck like say Shadow Paladin or ZTB, you'll want to go into the do nothing, universe their two front rows so they can't be multi-attacking you, and just hope you can go into a big grade 3 turn. The problem is that the Kingpin card, which is our 4 closes, to get to the big Deluge turn, you have to hold 4 closes in hand, and that's actually really bad because having a lot of grade 3s in hand that you can't actually guard with is pretty bad. Really bad. Especially given that you've got no way to get them back, no way to guarantee that you'll find them outside of the grade 1 Strife Order, which can sometimes miss. And it's just you're sitting there with a bunch of cards in your hand that are clogging nothing, and that you're just going to discard during your kill turn anyway. So it's kind of why am I even bothering, almost? Of course, it's perfectly fine to just go one close at a time on universes, on Althanis, on glue balls, and just slowly get there. But then you don't do anything to actually say, okay, I'm going to win the game right now outside of slightly big glue ball columns, which is also really sad. It's definitely better than Messiah though, because Messiah just tries to win, doesn't win, and then dies.
When you try your best, but you don't succeed.
You at least can sometimes not lose. It's not the same as winning, but it's something. Right now, I think the problem is that you have no good matchups. Even the previously good matchups now have outs to your answers, Neonectar, Aquaforce, and Nova Grapplers can all play around lock. Everything else that used to be able to match you for tempo is now just better because it either has 10k triggers or the support just lets it draw more cards. So you don't actually outplus in any way, shape or form anymore. All you can do is stop someone from playing the game for a turn or two, and then hope you don't die, and then hope you win. Moving forward, I don't really know what we can do. I kind of mentioned in the previous video that because we now know that all of the V-era support is deleter specific, I can't even pray that we'll get vanilla 10k Star Beta triggers. Because even if it's a vanilla 10k Star Beta heal, that means deleter doesn't get the vanilla 10k deleter heal. Or if we get a vanilla 10k Star Beta crit, it means deleters don't get a vanilla 10k crit. And it's kind of difficult to give everybody the right triggers. Of course, not that premium deleters will ever play crits, but it depends on whether or not people want to mix new crits into the old stuff, which is deleter specific. I think obviously the new V-era deleters only is definitely going to play 8 crit 4 draw no matter what happens. I don't see that ever changing. It's more of a case of what do you do in Premium? I think in Premium probably 12 stand will probably still be the play, although you might adjust to be more crits. It varies, we'll wait and see. But the long story short is Bushi can't give everybody all the triggers they want. So right now the lineup I'm running in Chaos is 6 crit, 3 stand and 3 draw. So 2 vanilla crits, 4 paradigm shift. And I would love to add say 3 or 4 10k triggers, 2 vanilla crits, 1 vanilla heal, maybe a vanilla draw, but we're just not going to get them. That's just the long story short, which is really sad. So very little I think will change in this deck unless there's some generic grade 1 or grade 2 with a starvated name, but with a generic effect. And even then, the generic effect needs to be very, very, very good. As it currently remains, the fundamental problem with Chaos is that outside of your glue ball turn, you can't hit numbers. You've got Photon, which is 9k base, doesn't give power. You've got Globularia, which is a 9k base, becomes 15 on play, but only for that turn. So it kind of hits some numbers, but not great numbers. You've got Melepton, who's an 8k base, doesn't gain power. And then you've got Dubnium, who's 9k base, and will maybe gain 10k. It will vary from depending on who you're playing against, depending on how the matchup is going. But basically, yeah, hitting numbers is a really big problem. And the other problem is that our grade 1s tend not to stay on the board. Because for grade 1s, we've got Strife Holders, which we want to use as Strife Holders because they search for our grade 3s. You've got PGs, that you obviously want to use as PGs because they draw you a card. You've got Zincs, which slide themselves into the Soul to Soul Charge 2 and Counter Charge 2. I don't see this card being cut ever because there's just so many free resources on a stick. And like the only other grade 1 I'm running is like 1 or 2 copies of Metnax Dragon just to fill up the slots. And 80% of the time, I'll ride Metnax if I can because you don't really care about him being an 11k booster. You care about riding him so you don't have to ride your Zinc or ride your PGs, you know, the cards that you actually want to be using. So yeah, like the grade 1 would have to be some incredible thing. Like Metnax is actually a really good card. It's an 11k booster with on-hit Omega Lock. So gives you on-hit pressure on your columns, and it makes numbers with everything in the deck. The problem is, we can't really afford to be playing 4, because we just don't have the slots. Like, what can possibly replace Metanax? What could possibly replace Zinc? What could possibly replace our Stride Fodders? So we're playing with slot issues here. Grade 2 is like very tight as well, because all your grade 2s need to lock in some way, shape or form, or like to continue your locks. Because if you have on ride and then on stride, and you go into say Opbani or Universe, it'll be very hard to actually full lock a field without wasting all of your resources. So that's why Photon's there, because it's free. It's why Globularia's there, because only can blast 1. Melepton is a bit weirder. Like, I really don't like Melepton just because it's an 8k body and 8k doesn't make numbers, but you just need it for the hand shred. Like, it guarantees you a lock. It does make numbers, so it's realistically worse than Globularian in every single way, but it's still there just because it can pull stuff out of hand. And most importantly, it's actually pretty good to ride as an 8k body sometimes, just so you don't lose to Geese. I really do want to cut Melepton if I can. I really do. I also really want to cut Photon, but right now he's just critical, which is also really sad. They'd have to give us some really broken cards to get there. Like, thinking back on the video I made last time about how, oh, what if we get this grade 2 10k Colony Maker that's the exact same as the old Colony Maker, but without the Starvade restriction. And thinking back on it, I probably wouldn't play that if it got printed in Chaos. I really wouldn't, because what do you cut? You're not going to cut Globularia, because it's a 15k beat stick on its own, and it guarantees you a lock. You're not going to cut Wnium, because it's a plus in every single way. You could cut Melepton, but then you're losing the hand shred, and then you're losing the extra guaranteed lock. That's pre-GB, very important. And you definitely can't cut Photon, because these are costless lock. So, what do you do? Yeah. Like, the G-Zone space is also really tight, which is quite sad, because you want to play 4 Universe, because Universe is really good. You want to play some number of Glue Balls, because Glue Ball is also really good. And I think you might even want to play 4, just because you want to flip them to like lock the field every now and again. But then you also want to play 1 or 2 Opthani, because Opthani draws you 2 cards and can maybe give you the extra lock. Very critically, if your opponent full fields on the first stride, Universe is dead, and you can't deluge them, and Glue Ball will only lock 1 on the first stride. So if their opponent has a full field, Opthani is the only way you're going to be able to lock their entire field. And very importantly, Opthani is one of the few G units that doesn't consume Counterblast. Or it's one of the few cards in the deck that doesn't consume Counterblast. Like, Glue Ball doesn't either, and Deluge doesn't either, but Universe is your main like stride for the first 2 turns. So having like a non-Counterblast stride is also quite useful to have that's not Deluge, because Deluge is actually really difficult to use properly. So we've got 4 Universe, and then 4 Glue Ball, and then 2 Opthani. If you want to play like 1 or 2 Deluge, like that's another 12, and then you want to play your start with 13, you want to add G-Guards, and like where are you going to get the space from? It's just really tough, and that's why Chaos is depression. You just don't have enough slots for all the effects that you need, and you need all these sorts of different effects because different matchups respond to lock in different ways. So it's just like, well, if I play it this way, then I die to Aquaforce, and if I try and beat Aquaforce, I die to ZTB, and if I try and beat ZTB, I die to Geese. It's really sad, man. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. I guess I'll quickly go over like into tabletop and just show you guys some of the plays I'm talking about, like some of the lines of play, some of the combos and how it works. So yeah, we'll jump into that, and then I'll probably just like give you the list I'm playing right now. It's probably not optimal, but that's because I've just been tweaking around with it, and just like it's very slap bang together, just so that I have something to play during the premium times while I'm waiting. But realistically, you can tune a lot of it to adjust to your local meta, because it's not like you'll ever be winning nationals with Chaos, let's be honest. But yeah, so we'll move over to TTS, and then I'll see you guys on the other side. So this is one of the few turns I was talking about, where your big deluge turn happens. You need to start the turn with a lot of soul, which is already very difficult, and several number of closes in hand. And surviving up until that point is already very, very difficult. And you also need to be on like at least GB2 because close is GB3. So the important play is overpaying the cost of stride. So the reason this works at all is because when you stride, you discard cards from your hand whose total grades equal at least 3. You can discard any number of cards, but they have to reach grade 3 total minimum. Which means that if we have multiple copies of Chaos Breaker Close, we can discard any number of them to pay for the stride cost, and they'll all go off. So for example, in this case, we'll discard 3 for the stride cost, which we'll put there. So we will go into our Deluge. So we've got multiple things all happening here. So we've got Crisis on stride, and then the Closes effect because they've been discarded. So let's resolve all 3 of these first and consume that. You know what, let me just turn all the damage face down and assume we have no face-up counterblast. And they've got no ray guards. So the 3 Closes will go off. So we'll just Soul Blast 3. That's fine. So they lock 1 from hand, 2 from hand, 3 from hand, wherever they want. Soul Blast 3 happens. So we'll just grab this deck here just to represent that. So that's 3 locks from hand. And we've still got some soul left in the card in hand. So then we'll activate the act of Deluge, which is Soul Blast 1. Flip 1. And discard a card from hand. So this forces them to lock 2 from hand. And the important thing here is we've discarded a Close, so the effect is on standby, ready to resolve. But we need to finish resolving Deluge, which includes putting one of their things into the damage. And then once that's all resolved, we then resolve the final Close by Soul Blasting 1 and force them to lock 1 more from hand. So we've pulled 6 cards out of their hand and they've still got a fully locked field. It's pretty good. Of course, like I said, getting to the point where you have multiple Closes in hand is very hard at all, because you either need to naturally draw into them with Crisis' effect or with your grade 1 Stride Fodder's secondary effect. And then you need to actually survive like whatever your opponent might do with just their Vanguard, which is easier said than done, because if you're finding all your grade 3s naturally, then how are you finding your perfect cards? How are you finding your heal triggers? Chaos doesn't really have like the ability to draw so many cards, you can just discard crits just to go, like 3 past the Vanguard. So that's like the struggle with the deck. The other big play you can do is with your glue balls, but even then, you're getting 15k maximum plus. And so if you look at something like, say, your Dubnium, that's becoming 19k because your opponent can't lock them because they have no more circles. 19 plus 15 is only 34. That is 25k for a 1 to guard for a 4 deck, which is like not actually that high. It's a crit and a 10k, so a crit and a grade 1. So even with Glue Ball, your numbers are really, really low. Unless you're against something like an Axel deck with 2 extra Axel circles, it's going to be really hard to like threaten big numbers. And if they have 2 extra Axel circles, good luck locking all of those without your Closes and without your Meleptons. And fun fact, if you're on Glue Ball, you can't even use Close. So yeah, it's going to be really, really difficult. So this is the list I have currently. Like I said, there's a lot of wild stuff going on. You've got your super wild trigger lineup, you've got 2 different starters, you've got a really stretched thin grade 2 lineup, and you've got your insane G-Zone that's just has no space. So let's just approach it bit by bit. So at the moment we've got our triggers. It's still a 6-3-3 as I mentioned. The reason we're playing draws is because, as I said, you want to find your grade 3s to be able to do the big Deluge turn with, and draws help with that. And as well as that, Shoe Build does actually 2 other big things, which is that it fixes the soul, which is important because Close needs soul and half your strides need soul, and it also gives something 3k, which is really good for fixing columns. If you've got Photon on his own, it becomes 12, Melepton on her own becomes 11, even like a used up Globulardia or a Dubnium when they can afford to lock the card from hand, can then hit 11k, which is just relevant against a lot of other decks. You'll never ever hit Force, unfortunately, so the best you can do is put 2-3k on Photon or Dubnium and hope to pressure Axel decks or Protect decks. It's quite sad, but that's the way it is right now. We've got 3 of the stand as well, because again, the stand costs Counterblast, which is kind of lame, but it does go into the soul, which helps with the issues, and also helps to relock things, which is very important because Crisis only kills 1 thing per turn now, so you no longer have the full field retire you used to, which is kind of good and bad. Like, it's good because you don't actually want to retire the whole field, you kind of want to keep them, kind of want to leave them with rear guards to be able to retire. The downside is that against things like Machining, which can eat their rear guards in the turn, it means that they'll have like the ability to actually pay for their costs and countercharge and draw. But at the moment, like, there are some things that you just can't afford to let their stay. So you need to just relock their front row into the big universe or lock something going into the Althani. It's just nice to have. And as well as that, WM is not once per turn. So if you have lots of counterblast open, you attack with WM, counterblast one, they either lock a card from hand or you get to draw and he's a 10k beat stick. And then if you hit a stand trigger, you can stand the WM and then do it again to force him to either lock from hand again, or you draw another card and he becomes a 19k beat stick once again. We have our heals because we need to counter the soul charge, we have Starvader name, which is great, and yeah, the rest, like, and we just fill up the remaining slots with crits. The reason I don't want to run Rainbow is because you really do want the crits for pressure. Like, if you do nothing other than, okay, lock 5, swing with a vanilla 26k Vanguard, those would be like, no one hits, right? No? No guard. Sure. Take 1 damage, take 2 damage, doesn't matter. Like, having access to like a few extra crits just means that if they're on 3 damage, they actually have to think about guarding it. Or if they're on 4 damage, they really have to think about guarding it. Because otherwise you just throw no pressure. Like, you hit stand draw, okay, cool, whatever. Like, locking 5 from their hand is just about nothing in that case. You'll see that I run a copy of Plank Draco Kid in the main deck. I kind of like and don't like this at the same time. It's kind of necessary in a way because, as mentioned, the important thing there is that he counterblast one and retires himself top 7s for a chaos. This is gonna miss more often than not, but if you don't have any chaoses in hand, he'll either let you ride it properly, or he gives you the fodder you need for your deluge turn. Like, in particular, because you can fetch him with carbon, against decks that don't have abilities to retire your rearguards or retire your starters, it actually gives you a very aggressive mulligan decision. Like, you can choose not to have any grade 3s in your opening hand, and then just carbon to a plank and then find a grade 3 off of there. Because if as long as you have one counterblast, you can just go for it. Or even a clan with retiring, like say Shadow Paladin, if you go first and they hit you on the grade 1, you can just spend that counterblast on your, like, start with Plank Draco Kid, that way you just immediately search for your Chaos grade 3 and then you have nothing to like shoot down. It's kind of a necessary evil in a way. So grade 1 lineup is pretty straightforward, as I mentioned. You've got your PGs, you've got your Stride Folders. We only have 3 Zinc because I'm actually very wary of decking myself out just from excess soul charging. And if you play a lot of Zincs, then there'll be a lot of times where you draw them and they'll be kind of dead. Like, the best Zinc is the one that you fetch off of carbon, because it's not you lose nothing and you get free resources. Any other Zincs from there on, you have to have called from hand, and that's kind of lame. We have our 2 Metanaxes just to make columns, as I said. I kind of want to play more, but we don't have space, because he is the best booster in the deck. Like, there have been a number of times where I've done the big triple close play, and then I've literally just called down the Penrose Gate just to boost, just make a 16k column, and that's also very depressing. Grade 2 lineup is pretty straightforward as before. I've said we have to run Lepton for that reason, we have to run Globularity for this reason, Photon for X other reason, and then we have W's, which is like the only actual good grade 2 in the deck. Grade 3s again is straightforward, 4 of each of the good Chaoses. Chaos Breaker Dragon is not good, anyone that's still playing that is probably just being budget. Like I said, the G-Zone is very tight, we have to have our 4 universes, our 4 glue balls. They're like, universes are our setup, they're how we establish board control, it's how we establish the locks, and then glue ball is how we lock stuff that's already there and how we actually like kill people, because then we give numbers to the columns. I'm still like flitting around with like the Althani and the Deluge lineup. I kind of want to maybe even risk cutting a universe, because you're going to flip one for the Deluge anyway, you're going to flip one for the Althani anyway, or maybe cut like a glue ball, because you're going to flip one for the Deluge, or sometimes if you're lucky, you can lock their whole field without needing to glue ball skill, so the GB3 will just be active as a vanilla effect, kind of like Drag Abyss, but not as good. The 1 spark as necessary is critical, and then our 5 G-Guards, it's just good G-Guards to set up the board. Like I said, you can tune this a lot for your local meta. Like, if you're not playing against anything that's board control, or you can afford to take it slow against some of like the weaker premium decks, then you don't need the Plank main board. You can run the 4th Zinc or a 3rd Metanax, that's fine. If you don't have a lot of Geese in your metagame, then you probably don't need Melepton either, because you don't need to ride the 8k body. And if people are playing like decks that leave stuff on the board, then you also don't need Melepton, because Melepton only calls to open rearguard circles. So anything that can like spam the board and keep stuff there, like Aquaforce, then you're happy to drop Melepton against. Same goes for Photon as well. Opposite goes for Photon and Globularia. Like, those things are always good. Like, Globularia doesn't specify open, so your opponent can call over something if they have to, and then anything that leaves stuff on the board, then Photon is really good against. Like, there you want to go, okay, you've left something open, so Camel Blast 1 on the Stride skill to Stride the Universe, lock something, Photon the other thing, restrict your options on what you can lock with Universe, for example. The downside is that it doesn't work with Lockbody because Lockbody is an on-place, not an act, but it does work with Glue Ball. Like, if you've only got 2 face-up cards open, then your Glue Ball will only lock 3, and if there are 5 rear guards, then Photon can help get that extra lock you need for a full field lock. The other things you can adjust are, like, you don't have to have 4 Glue Balls, I think. It's nice, but it's not the best win con. So you can always like drop down to 2, maybe 3, just add like another Opani or another Deluge, whatever floats your boat, maybe some Breeze if you're being Greatsword a lot. But in reality, I think Chaos is pretty good against Greatsword because most of your effects aren't GB restricted. Like, W's the only one, and W's kind of your best card, but you're okay with that. Like, you're okay to just ride grade 3, lock a dude, call a Globularia, lock another dude, Photon lock, and then swing for light pressure, because you've already locked the board, and that's, like, locking the board is where Chaos gets its board advantage from. But like I said, don't be fooled, this deck is still very, very, very depressing to play, and hopefully we'll get at least something coming out in the V booster that'll make it playable, although, like I said, I have no idea what that thing might be. But that'll be it for now. I'll hope to get the Messiah and the Deleta ones up relatively soon. I kind of want to get these videos out back to back to back at some point in the next week or so. So yeah, stay tuned. I'll be making the Messiah one next, and I'll finish off with the Deleta one, because that's got the most potential. Yeah, that's it. Like, there's not much else coming out this week, so I'll probably be making some more stuff once Premium BCS in France finishes. There'll be a lot to talk about there. But yeah, until then, stay tuned to us on Facebook, on Discord, on Twitter, subscribe, bell button, YouTube, all the regular stuff. Stay up to date, let me know what you want to see, let me know what you don't want to see, and other than that, that'll be it from me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!